The movie opens up in a vibrant club, with Lulli, a young girl, stepping in alongside her boyfriend Diego. She talks to her boyfriend and emphasizes the significance of the upcoming day when she's set to achieve her lifelong goal of becoming a doctor. Lulli is a determined and hard-working individual, but she has a notable flaw. She's not the best at listening, often preoccupied with her own thoughts. Diego is eager to discuss his anxiety as a medical student, but Lulli appears oblivious and absorbed in her own world. The former, grappling with a sense of despondency, opens up about his desire to drop out of medical school. However, Lulli dismisses his concerns and drags him onto the dance floor. Following their dance, Diego makes another attempt to confide in Lulli about his problems, yet she seems more engrossed in the restaurant menu than in Diego's words. While Diego shares about the excruciating leg pain, Lulli goes ahead and orders a variety of dishes, including shrimp and chicken thighs. Annoyed, Diego leaves the table and strikes up a conversation with Dr. Paula at the bar, which stirs Lulli's jealousy. Later, when Diego returns to the table and begins eating, he starts feeling unwell. He questions Lulli if the dishes contain the shrimp, which he's allergic to. Surprisingly, Lulli is unaware of his allergy, despite Diego's repeated attempts to inform her. Realizing the severity of the situation, Lulli calls for an ambulance to rush Diego to the hospital. It's at this moment that Diego comprehends the extent of Lulli's self-absorption and selfishness. Enraged by her disregard for his well-being, Diego makes the difficult decision to part ways with her right there in the ambulance. He's aware of how Lulli habitually fails to pay attention to anything he says. In defense, Lulli vehemently denies any knowledge of his allergy, but Diego mentions that he's informed her countless times. After breaking up with Diego, Lulli is surprised because she still doesn't think she did anything wrong. The next day, Lulli's mother learns about the breakup with Diego and suggests they patch up. Again, our girl ignores her words and heads to the hospital for her first day as a doctor. On her way, she meets Julio, her childhood friend, and they chat briefly before she rushes to the bus stop. Soon, Lulli arrives at the hospital and meets her best friend, Vanessa. The two talk about Diego, and the former mentions him dropping out of medical school. However, to her surprise, she finds Diego alongside Paula, and this makes Lulli a bit jealous, even though she knows they're no longer dating, and Paula is much older. Throughout the day, Lulli notices that Paula pays a lot of attention to Diego. She follows them wherever they go and tries to find out what's actually going on between them. During an information session at the hospital, all the newcomers learn that they can't treat a patient without a more experienced doctor present, even though they understand the subject. Despite this, Lulli doesn't listen and almost administers the wrong medicine to a patient. Fortunately, Paula notices her and intervenes, saving the day, and Lulli feels embarrassed. She makes Lulli understand that one needs to check the patient's history before administering any medication to them. Afterward, Paula asks a couple of questions to the group of new doctors, and Diego and Lulli give the correct answers at the same time. With this, they get a case involving a 60-year-old alcoholic named Oscar to take care of his medical procedure. They take him to the MRI laboratory for tests and fit him in the machine. Diego even tells Oscar to press the emergency button if he feels something weird inside the machine, so that they can stop the procedure. However, during the tests, the lights and computer screens start to glitch. The laboratory assistant mentions a software problem and tells Diego and Lulli to wait outside while he goes and calls the IT technician. But Lulli, as usual, doesn't listen and rushes into the lab to check on Oscar. Diego tries his best to stop her and follows her inside the lab. Lulli believes that if they consume more time, then Oscar will be affected by the radiation inside the machine and walks towards the machine to press the stop button. Sadly, as soon as she touches the machine, there occurs a blast and both of them get an electric shock. In the next scene, when Lulli wakes up, she's in a hospital bed and Vanessa is taking care of her. Lulli's first question is about whether Paula and Diego are dating. Vanessa assures her that they're not, but Lulli starts hearing her friend's thoughts, including Vanessa's belief that they might be dating. The latter also informs that Diego is resting beside them and Paula is taking great care of him. In a state of confusion, Lulli decides to rest. However, when Vanessa approaches Paula to inform her about Lulli's condition and no one is looking, Lulli escapes from the hospital in a hurry. Along the way, she accidentally touches people's hands and can clearly hear their thoughts. This overwhelms her, and on a bus, she can't handle hearing everyone's thoughts, leading to a panicked outburst. Following the hospital incident, Lulli decides to attend Giulio's volleyball practice. The latter is very happy to see her in the court and focuses on his practice. She urges him to give his best, and he does, getting selected for the final match. However, Giulio denies his coach's request to take the position and mentions that he's feeling pain in his calf. The coach then urges him to do some medical tests and confirm his decision. After this, Giulio approaches Lulli and the latter asks him why he didn't take the position offered to play. Giulio mentions his injury, but Lulli overhears him privately confessing that he's faking a leg injury to avoid playing in the finals due to fear of failure in front of the crowd. Later, Giulio pays a visit to Lulli at her house and has dinner with her family. Lulli's mother talks to Giulio and suggests he and Lulli get into a relationship, pointing out that they've been best friends since childhood and they know each other very well. Following this, Giulio enters Lulli's room, and as they discuss their love lives, Lulli accidentally reads Giulio's thoughts and discovers that he's gay. This revelation shocks Giulio, and he realizes that Lulli possesses the power to read minds. They agree to keep both these revelations a secret. However, when Vanessa suddenly shows up and inquires about their conversation, asking both of them if they were making out, Giulio panics and blurts out Lulli's mind-reading ability. In response, Lulli also reveals to Vanessa that Giulio is gay. To talk about the matter in secret, the three of them head to a nearby bridge. After confirming the authenticity of Lulli's newfound ability through some testing, Vanessa becomes convinced of its reality and suggests she read Diego and Paula's minds to find out about what's going on between them. Back at the hospital, Lulli encounters Diego, and to her surprise, he pulls her towards him and kisses her. It seems like the latter has no recollection of ending their relationship. In an attempt to understand his thoughts by touching him, Lulli realizes that she can't read his mind. Confused by this discovery, she talks to Paula, who explains that the accident that occurred in the MRI room erased Diego's memory of the previous day, including their breakup. Hearing this, Lulli contemplates informing Diego about their breakup, but ultimately decides against it. She then touches Paula's hand to know what she thinks about Diego, and to her surprise, discovers that the senior doctor sees Diego as a son. Diego's father is Paula's colleague, and as she's known him since his childhood, she cares about him a lot. After this revelation, Lulli gets relaxed and focuses on her studies. Lulli realizes she can now concentrate on her work and effectively utilize her newfound mind-reading ability to identify when patients are not being truthful and find the reality of their symptoms. She accurately diagnoses 2 patients, earning admiration from Paula and serving as an example for the new doctors. Nevertheless, Lulli struggles with the overwhelming experience of hearing people's unspoken thoughts, which feels like an invasion of their privacy. She then confides in Vanessa about the feeling, and the latter encourages her to embrace her power. However, Lulli remains determined to rid herself of it as soon as possible. The following day, to ease her guilty feelings, Giulio and Vanessa take her to a spiritual class, where she encounters a fortune teller who makes accurate predictions about her life. To her bad luck, when the fortune teller holds her hand, Lulli realizes that the fortune teller is a fraud and walks out of the place. Later, the trio goes on a club date, where Lulli encounters Diego and her other colleague, Ricardo. Vanessa actually has a crush on Ricardo and approaches him, despite him sitting and talking to another girl, Helena. Vanessa's flirtation with Ricardo leads his date, Helena, to leave. Ricardo then talks to Vanessa and reveals that Helena is dropping out of medical school to move abroad, leading the latter to feel sorry for her. As they converse, Giulio displays an interest in Ricardo, but he isn't certain if Ricardo feels the same for him. In the next scene, Lulli is with Diego, and for their 1-year anniversary celebration, the former playfully jokes about ordering shrimp for dinner, making Diego feel uncomfortable. As soon as he hears this, he starts having vivid flashbacks of the recent incident, accompanied by shortness of breath, and attributes his discomfort to fatigue. Outside the club, Vanessa approaches Helena, whom she had been rude to earlier, and offers an apology. The two put their rivalry aside and have a heartfelt conversation. Vanessa even invites Helena to stay in her apartment until she shifts abroad. After their celebration, Diego takes Lulli to his home, stating that it's empty. Actually, Diego's father is a surgeon and has gone out for the night to complete his remaining work. Using this opportunity, the duo cooks dinner, shares some drinks, and spends some quality time together. They even get intimate and enjoy a romantic night. The following morning, Diego's father unexpectedly enters their room and discovers both Diego and Lulli naked. He is there to search for something important that he had left behind. Later, they engage in a conversation and then have breakfast together. Diego's father is a renowned but generally absent surgeon who has high expectations for his son, contributing to Diego's desire to quit medical school. Later that day, near the MRI room, Diego experiences distressing flashbacks of the accident. This leads to physical discomfort and breathing difficulties. Diego again attributes these symptoms to fatigue and goes to meet his patient Oscar, who is not doing well. He then discovers that Oscar hasn't been taking the prescribed medication. It's revealed that Oscar's son harbors deep resentment toward his father due to his long-standing struggle with alcoholism. The medical team believes Oscar requires a surgical drainage procedure. However, Oscar is not in a state to provide consent, so they need a family member to authorize it. In this case, the responsibility falls on Diego and Lulli to find a family member for Oscar and speak with him. To do so, they visit Oscar's son César at his home and uncover the neglectful history between the father-son duo. Diego shares his own strained relationship with his father and convinces César to consent to the surgery, which is critical for Oscar's condition. Soon, the procedure, focused on Oscar's brain, is performed and is reported as successful. That evening, Lulli confides in her mother about her mind-reading power. Her mother initially finds it amusing, but soon becomes concerned when Lulli reads her mind. After Lulli demonstrates her abilities, her mother discusses her condition, explaining that they'll need to wait and observe whether it disappears or persists. In the next scene, Lulli attends Julio's volleyball match along with her colleagues, where the latter performs exceptionally well, and his team emerges victorious. This success prompts a round of congratulations from all around. Following this, there's a touching moment when Julio and Ricardo share a hug, indicating the start of a romantic relationship between them. Vanessa, witnessing this, can't help but smile, surprised to learn that her crush is gay. The next day at work, Oscar regains consciousness and shares an emotional hug with his son. This touching sight melts Diego and Lulli's hearts. In the heat of the moment, Diego leans in to kiss Lulli, but this intimate moment is disrupted when Diego's lost memories suddenly flood his mind. He vividly recalls the painful things Lulli had said to him the night they broke up. Overwhelmed by this sudden realization, he's left feeling confused and furious. Diego confronts Lulli, expressing his anger and confusion at her having concealed the truth from him for so long. In the midst of this emotional confrontation, his breathing becomes heavy and he loses consciousness. To his good luck, the medical team swiftly attends to Diego and, with the help of Lulli, notices that he's experienced ongoing leg pain for some time. As a result of additional tests and evaluation, they diagnose him with a pulmonary embolism, a potentially life-threatening condition. Quick thinking by Paula and the doctors leads to a speedy and accurate diagnosis. In a tense turn of events, Diego's condition deteriorates after the surgery, and he experiences ventricular fibrillation, a fatal heart rhythm problem. The doctors use a defibrillator to restore his heartbeat, but in the process, who has been by his side and holding his hand also gets accidentally shocked and falls to the ground. After this, Diego is rushed into emergency surgery, while Lulli anxiously waits outside. Next, Vanessa approaches Lulli to console her, and at this moment, though the former touches Lulli, our girl is not able to read her mind. Lulli then realizes that the shock from the defibrillator has resulted in her losing her mind-reading ability, and becomes very happy. In a heartwarming twist, Diego finally awakens, bringing immense relief to Lulli. Diego's father, who arrives late at the hospital, expresses his deep gratitude to Paula for saving his son's life. In this moment, Diego's father takes the opportunity to apologize to his son for his past harshness and for pushing him into a career he didn't want. This leads to a touching reconciliation, and they forgive each other. In the final scene, we witness the graduation of all the medical students. Diego and Lulli are still together, and they're filled with joy and anticipation about their shared future. The movie then ends with the two sharing a romantic kiss and their friends cheering for them.